It was 1 week before Christmas, and the air buzzed with excitement in Mr. John's household. Every December, his family made their annual trip to their village to celebrate with relatives. This year was no different. The children packed their clothes with happy chatter, dreaming of the fun awaiting them. Mr. John, a cheerful man with a love for tradition, reassured everyone that their trip would be just as smooth as always. But Yuyu, Mr. John's wife, felt uneasy. Her heart whispered that something wasn't right. She suggested they pray for protection before embarking on their journey. "John, let's not take things for granted. We should pray," she pleaded. Mr. John chuckled, brushing off her worries. "Yuyu, nothing will happen. We've traveled every year without trouble. Why worry now?" The next day, as Mr. John headed to the market to buy last-minute supplies, he met an old woman. She stood near the market's entrance, her gaze intense and her voice serious. "Young man," she said, "be careful as you travel. Danger hides on the road. Pray before you leave." Mr. John laughed nervously, thinking she was just another overly superstitious elder. He thanked her politely and walked away. That evening, when he told Yuyu about the encounter, her worry deepened. "This isn't a coincidence, John. We should really pray." But Mr. John waved it off again, confident nothing would go wrong. On the morning of their trip, the family loaded their car with gifts and luggage. The children sang Christmas songs as they eagerly waited to begin. Mr. John got into the driver's seat, turned the key, and nothing happened. The car wouldn't start. He tried again and again, but the engine stayed silent. Frustrated, he stepped out and popped the hood. "This car worked fine yesterday," he muttered. Yuyu's uneasy feeling grew stronger. "John, maybe this is a sign. Maybe we shouldn't go." But Mr. John shook his head. "Nonsense. We are going. I'll find another way." Meanwhile, in the village, a storm was brewing. Mama Amoka, a neighbor filled with bitterness, watched Mr. John's family with envy. She couldn't stand their success and happiness. While others admired the John family for their kindness and achievements, Mama Amoka's heart burned with jealousy. Determined to ruin their happiness, she sought out witches known for their dark powers. "I want them to suffer. Make sure they never reach this village alive," she demanded. The witches nodded, setting their sinister plans in motion. Mr. John refused to let a broken car ruin their trip. He quickly arranged for the family to travel by bus instead. Yuyu's uneasiness remained, but she kept her fears to herself. She whispered a silent prayer as they boarded the bus. The journey started smoothly, with laughter and songs from the passengers. Mr. John's children pressed their faces against the window, marveling at the scenery. But Yuyu couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Little did they know, danger was waiting just ahead. As the bus sped down a steep hill, the driver suddenly realized something was wrong. He pressed the brake pedal, but nothing happened. "The brakes," he shouted. Panic erupted inside the bus. Passengers screamed as the bus swerved dangerously. Yuyu clutched her children tightly, her heart pounding. Mr. John's face turned pale as he realized the gravity of the situation. The driver struggled to regain control, but the bus hurtled forward, heading straight for disaster. Just as it seemed all hope was lost, a strange twist of fate unfolded. Miraculously, the bus swerved into a large tree, bringing it to a sudden stop. The impact was strong, but no lives were lost. The passengers stumbled out, shaken but grateful to be alive. Yuyu's whispered prayers seemed to have shielded them from the worst. As Mr. John looked around at his family, unhurt but terrified, he felt a deep pang of guilt. Could Yuyu have been right all along? Was this a warning he had ignored? Word of the bus accident spread quickly, reaching their village. Panic gripped their relatives, who feared the worst. Mama Amoka was furious when she heard that no one had died. Her plans had failed, and her jealousy deepened. Determined not to give up, Mama Amoka sought the witches again. This time, she demanded they use stronger spells to block the family from reaching the village. But the witches hesitated. "Be careful with your request," they warned. "Such evil can come back to haunt you." Back on the road, the shaken passengers waited for another bus to continue their journey. Among them was a quiet young man who introduced himself as Daniel. He had a calm, reassuring presence that made everyone feel a little safer. As they waited, Daniel turned to Mr. John. "Sir, I think your wife's prayers saved us today. You should listen to her more closely." Mr. John looked surprised but nodded. Deep down, he felt Daniel might be right. Meanwhile, unknown to the group, Daniel's presence seemed to counteract the witch's dark magic. Was he just another passenger, or was there more to him than met the eye? As the journey resumed in a new bus, the atmosphere remained tense. Daniel sat next to Mr. John and shared calming stories of faith and resilience. His words seemed to lift everyone's spirits, especially Yuyu's. For the first time since the trip began, she felt a sense of peace. During a stop at a roadside market, an elderly woman approached Yuyu. "Child, your prayers are strong, but beware of the jealous hearts in your village," she whispered. Yuyu froze, her heart racing. How did this stranger know about her prayers or the unease she felt? Before Yuyu could ask more, the woman disappeared into the crowd. Yuyu told Mr. John, but he brushed it off, still unwilling to fully accept the spiritual warnings around them. Back in the village, Mama Amoka grew restless. The witches had warned her against stronger spells, but her jealousy clouded her judgment. She decided to take matters into her own hands. Late at night, she performed a ritual by herself, calling upon dark forces to stop the John family. Unbeknownst to her, such rituals often backfire when done with selfish intent. Strange occurrences began in Mama Amoka's household, shadows moved where there was no light, and eerie whispers filled the air. Yet, she remained focused on her goal, unaware of the doom she was inviting upon herself. As the bus neared the village, the passengers' spirits lifted. They could almost see the familiar landmarks of home. But Daniel grew quiet, his expression serious. "We are not safe yet," he whispered to Yuyu. Just then, a massive tree branch fell onto the road, blocking their path. The driver managed to stop the bus in time, but the passengers were shaken. Daniel stepped out and helped clear the road. His strength seemed almost supernatural, and Yuyu couldn't help but wonder if he was sent to protect them. With the road cleared, the bus continued its journey. Mr. John, finally humbled by the series of events, joined Yuyu in a silent prayer, asking for protection for the rest of the way.